Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing, and every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour, armed with covert surveillance systems.
That's a subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, the full impact of a crash for cash plays out in front of passengers' eyes.
This was a fast road. It was just about to join the M40 motorway. The driver stood on his brakes to cause a crash.
Thames Valley Police target the UK's #1 insurance fraud. And a prisoner's attempt to stretch the truth results in a longer stretch inside.
He actually stated to his girlfriend that he was hoping to gain around £6,000 in compensation.
Crash for cash is the #1 insurance fraud in the UK. As its name suggests, criminals deliberately create crashes for huge insurance payouts targeting innocent drivers. It's often described as a victimless crime, and that the only people who pay are insurance companies. But not anymore.
Crash for cash, in its simplest form, is where you will have a driver of a car, and they are part of a criminal gang. They're determined to make a crash, and for you to drive into the back of them because it's recognised generally through the insurance world that if you drive into the back of someone, it's your fault.
Scams like these are costing up to £400 million a year through fake claims. Inspector James Upton was the leading investigator of a horrific car crime, the first fake accident which had fatal consequences.
The worst is where innocent victims are targeted. That's only going to lead to one thing, that's someone being killed or very seriously injured.
In June 2011, 34-year-old Balinder Corgill was driving home along the motorway when she was involved in a crash for cash scam. The accident happened around 8:30 p.m. Two cars were working together, aiming to cause a crash. One car pulled in front of the other, hoping for a van behind to collide into one of their vehicles.
This was a fast road. It was just about to join the M40 motorway. It was a 3-lane stretch of road at 70 miles an hour. The driver stood on his brakes to cause a crash.
Balinder was driving behind the targeted van.
Actually, the victim that they chose was Mr. Fallon in the green transit van, and was a sign-written transit van. It would have been clear to most people that it was a business-related van that probably had insurance. But Balinder was immediately behind Mr. Fallon and was caught up in the plan.
She probably would have just thought everything's going to be fine. She was at the car, she was in a safe place. So when she leapt back in to grab a jacket because it was cold, that the second collision took place.
Balinder had crashed into the back of the targeted green van. She managed to get out of her car, but it was so badly damaged from the first collision that she had to stay on the hard shoulder. Then events took a devastating turn.
Within a short period of time, another vehicle came along in the third lane, and unfortunately he was unable to stop in time and drove into Miss Gill and her car, and she died at the scene.
The devastating impact of the second collision can be seen in the reaction of passengers on a passing coach. This footage was so compelling, it was used in court.
My dad's come up to me and said, oh, the police were outside, coming up in the door to see what they want. come downstairs and I've opened the door and I've spoken to the two officers out there. And they've suggested that they come in and we all sit down and they can speak to us properly. I remember crying. It was just difficult.
We were just numbed. We have no idea what they said, what we hear. Up to about 6 or 7 in the morning, we were talking, crying, and just realised what they have said.
Luckily for me, the last thing I told my sister, I think it was the day before the accident, I spoke to her on the phone in the evening, probably about 7 o'clock. And I was just wishing her happy birthday. And the last thing I said to her on the phone was, I love you.
Mr. Lee, who hit Balinder and drove into the back of her car, was arrested at the scene. Mr. Lee was not a member of the gang, but was sentenced to a year in prison for causing Balinder's death.
He was investigated, charged and found guilty of causing her death by careless driving at Reading Crown Court. But it should be recognised he was not part of that gang.
On the roadside, the members of the gang had been treated as innocent bystanders. It was only when the police started to investigate the accident further that they realised it was anything but an accident.
Bye.
At the scene, a passenger had given officers a false identity. It turned out the owners of 2 of the vehicles lived yards from each other and were in contact at the time of the crash.
We had seized their mobile phones at the point of arrest. Most of them denied any involvement in what had happened and certainly had said that they had no plan to create a crash or claim fraudulently for insurance purposes. What developed through the investigation into the mobile phone evidence was that they clearly were all in communication with each other before, during and after the collision.
By April 2014, the gang had been tried at Reading Crown Court. 4 members of the gang of 5 were sentenced for 9 years and above, and the 5th member was given 6.5 years.
It should really send a message out to anybody that's thinking about committing such frauds that it's taken very seriously and there's a high price to pay.
No sentence that any judge ever issued would ever be enough. It's never going to bring my sister back. There's no, in my opinion, there's no punishment that's suitable enough to give them after what they did.
Balinder unnecessarily lost her life because of the unnecessary greed of this criminal gang. There's no place for this sort of driving on the UK's roads, and the police service will do everything that we can to stop it. And if it happens, investigate it. We want to make our roads safe, and we will do what we can and every investigative technique to identify these individuals and bring them to justice.
To think, instead of going out and getting a job and just working and doing what everybody else does, to commit crime and to get money that way, it's just horrible.
We're never going to get Balinder's back. They probably get their life back at one point, but we're not going to get our life back.
We got no life because we lost our 2 child. We have breathing and walking, but we got no life.
Crash for cash is becoming a major policing issue. Currently, UK police forces are investigating 110 of these scams across the country. Reports claim that 1 in 7 personal injury claims are linked to deliberate crashes. These collisions are designed to milk insurance companies of up to £30,000 per crash. It's big money, and it's a serious danger to the public. Britain's police forces are determined to put the brakes on this type of crime, and Thames Valley Police is no exception.
Police, open the door now, last chance!
Detective Inspector Louise Roddy from 4th CID has a team of 25 officers dealing with crimes from murder to blackmail and fraud.
We work closely with the Insurance Fraud Bureau and the Crown Prosecution Service to make sure that we've got a watertight case to present at court.
Thames Valley Police have witnessed the impact these crimes can have on the public as they brought the criminal gang to justice who killed Balinder Corgill.
These accidents are taking place on busy roads and the offenders can't possibly know what the end result of their crime will be. So it really isn't a victimless crime at all.
With Crash for Cash on the rise, 4th CID aim to track down these gangs.
I do think the action that we've taken also sends out a really clear message that Thames Valley Police aren't prepared to accept these types of offences in our area.
And the police will use everything in their power to bring these criminals to justice.
We will seek to disrupt any offenders and we will target them if they continue to commit offences.
It's 7 a.m. Today, Thames Valley Police are getting ready to raid another suspected Crash for Cash ring.
So Operation is basically an operation that's focused on a series of frauds that have happened as a result of some induced or fake road traffic collisions. So the aim today is obviously to disrupt these offences, to stop them happening, to arrest the suspects and to prosecute them.
Police teams from CID, road policing and immigration have been working together, investigating a series of Crash for Cash crimes.
It's a police issue because of the scale of the offences. This is a series of crimes and it does involve criminals that work together, and we believe that they're an organised group of criminals. So if we can have the sergeants back in the office over there and we'll look to go out in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you.
Sergeant Nigel Scarrett is preparing to head out with his team on today's raid at a company address, where it's believed that the suspected criminal gang planned the crashes from.
It's a first floor business premise. We're looking to arrest for suspicion of conspiracy to defraud and damage property and suspicion of dangerous driving. 3 subjects at the address, so we're not really sure numbers-wise how many's going to be there.
Nigel briefs the officers, directing them on how they will tackle the raid.
We'll try and park up short so you can go in first. Because of the time of day, we're not sure if anybody's going to be here or not. So likelihood is we're probably going to have to force it. So if you want to lead, follow Roger, all right, and then we'll come behind you in the van.
Ready, Todd?
Let's do it. Quebec Sierra 50, test call.
Raids have their risks. The officers have to be ready for any eventuality.
It's a big crime, really. You know, a lot of fraud, worth a lot of money. They're making a lot of money from it. Yeah, they get quite upset and want to fight you. So that's why we always go in quite strong, really. Quebec Sierra 50 at the address.
Speed is essential, as the police don't want to run the risk of any suspect destroying evidence.
Breach! Got a second person in here.
Another one. How many got? 2 in here? 1 in there? 1 in there. Is that it, yeah?
There's a few startled people on the premises.
We've got a warrant, okay, to search this address, which is what we're going to do, okay, so we're going to be here for quite a long time. Conspiracy of fraud is what we're looking at.
It's essential the officers contain the situation quickly.
That's how it is, you know, it needs to be quick. We didn't know what were behind the doors.
But with the size of the premises and the amount of possessions, the team could be here for days searching through the property's contents.
It's a massive place here. I think there's going to be loads we've got to go through, so if when any officers come free, if they could come and help, that'd be appreciated.
Still to come, the raid continues, making some surprising findings.
So far, we've seized computers, we've found some drugs on the premises, and also shotgun cartridges as well.
For most people, ending up on the wrong side of the law means spending time inside. Some inmates see it as a time for rehabilitation. But for the most cunning criminal, being locked up doesn't necessarily stop them from attempting to break the law. Personal injury prison payouts have become a new source of income for some inmates, as criminals see it as an easy way to cash in from their cells. Prisoner Noel Jennings was serving 12 months for burglary, but during his stretch, he didn't exactly stay on the straight and narrow.
Mr. Jennings had been play fighting with his cellmate. During that, he'd somehow sustained a slight cut to the side of his head.
When Jennings saw a puddle on the floor, he came up with a harebrained idea.
He claimed that there was a damp area outside the showers and that he'd slipped and fallen forward and caught the side of his head on the door frame, which had caused a slight injury.
Simon Cartwright is the governor of HMP Manchester and oversees 1,300 inmates at the high security prison. So-called accidents have become a regular source of income for some of the prisoners.
Claims submitted vary from issues of assault, issues around injury, issues around fighting, issues around broken equipment. If an event happens, and if I can describe an event being an accident or an injury, they are always routinely investigated anyway, and we carry out robust investigations into those incidents.
But unfortunately for Jennings, during a routine phone call home, he did literally put his foot in it.
We initially got informed by security that a phone call had taken place between Mr. Jennings and his girlfriend.
I need you to get hold of an injury claim solicitor for me.
During the phone call, he told his girlfriend that he had injured himself play fighting with his cellmate.
And I've gone out David's cell, and the doors are low, and I've jumped up to go pretend to butt him, and I've smacked my head clean off it and nearly knocked myself clean out.
Ah, that's what really happened then.
But he'd also noticed there was some wet floor outside the showers and that he was going to claim that he slipped on the floor and banged his head.
Tell him that there was no wet floor signs out on the landing or nothing.
Now, that's not what you said 2 minutes ago to your girlfriend.
And the doors are low, and I've jumped up to go pretend to butt him, and I've smacked my head clean off it.
With this so-called knock on the head, Jennings had high hopes of cashing in.
He actually stated to his girlfriend that he was hoping to gain around £6,000 in compensation.
Everyone's been saying to me I get about £6,000 because it's a big scar on my face.
But the prison's litigation team were one step ahead.
When we heard from security that this phone call had taken place, obviously we gathered all the other relevant paperwork that was needed, and then we just sat and waited for this claim to come into the office.
It turned out that Jennings' bright idea hadn't really been given that much thought. Perhaps that bang to the head had stopped him thinking straight.
The attempt of fraud was not well thought out at all. It was completely amateur. He knew that phone calls would be routinely subject to monitoring, so there was every chance that the phone call could have been picked up by security, which fortunately it was in this case.
When Jennings knew the prison was onto him, he held his hands up.
Once he was interviewed by the police, he admitted that he was actually injured during the play fight and that it was an attempt to put a fraudulent claim in.
Jennings was charged with fraud and taken to the Crown Court. He was found guilty of perverting the course of justice and given an additional 15 months to be added onto the end of his current sentence.
It always feels good when you can disprove a litigation claim when it comes in. So it was a really good feeling around the office that we could actually do something and get this guy prosecuted.
Jennings, by chancing his arm for the sake of £6,000, got another year inside. It just goes to show crime doesn't pay.
The message that we can give to the public and to offenders is that if you pursue false claims against the prison service, you will be brought to justice.
Royal Mail delivers thousands of letters and parcels every day, from birthday cards to gifts. But sometimes that long-awaited package just doesn't arrive. Thankfully, Royal Mail offers insurance for such events. But, yep, you've guessed it, where there's insurance, there's fraud. In June 2011, when one particular package was claimed to have gone astray, two bungling fraudsters gave a rather wet interpretation of this type of fraud.
We received a call from one of our post office counter staff who told us that she'd taken a package in, a special delivery package, insured for £2,500, but later on that day she'd realised that there was water coming out of the package.
It seemed that the customer was about to post a package that wasn't all that it was wrapped up to be.
I don't think the lady in the post office was at all suspicious of the individual who brought the items in. What she was suspicious of was the fact there was water draining down her counter half an hour later.
The fraudsters thought they came up with a brilliant scheme to make £1 or £2. They decided to post several iPads to the value of £2,500 via special delivery. But instead of iPads, they packed it with ice cubes. Hold on, ice packs, not iPads. But what they thought was a watertight plan disappeared before their very eyes. The counter assistant opened up the package and found inside a bag of melting ice cubes.
We assumed this was probably going to be a compensation scam, so we warned our colleagues in customer services to let us know as soon as they'd had a compensation claim with regard to that parcel.
Of course, it wasn't long before Royal Mail received a claim for £2,500 for iPads being lost in transit.
To the best of our knowledge, the iPads never existed. When we checked the packaging, we found there was nothing inside it but a bag of melting ice cubes.
It turned out the swindlers weren't as clever as they thought and had got in a muddle over how the postal service works.
No real understanding of how the postal service or our claim service works because we'd never dispose of a parcel. If a parcel is damaged in some way, we will always try to reconstitute it and we'll deliver it to the addressee.
The two fraudsters were Nathan Mensch and Nigel Bennett. Obviously a lover of packaging as he turned up to court with a bag on his head. In July 2013, at Shrewsbury Crown Court, they were found guilty of fraud and received a 12-month community order and had to undertake 150 hours of unpaid work.
From time to time, we do see fraudulent claims. The point is we do have an investigation team, so we will never leave these uninvestigated. We will always try to get to the bottom of it.
Was this a first-class fraud or just plain stupid?
Ice cubes themselves are unusual. I've heard of it happening in other areas. We've never seen it before. It certainly wouldn't work because the ice has got to go somewhere. So it was a fairly poorly thought out scam, really.
If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. For the craftiest of fraudsters, when a claim fails, they don't give it a second thought of trying it on with a different insurer.
We received a call from the policy holder who reported accidental damage to his bedroom carpet caused by spillage of hot hair removal wax.
For this particular claimer, chancing his arm got him in a sticky mess.
Part of a routine inquiry would be to make database checks, and we very quickly discovered that the policy holder had a very similar claim only 4 months prior with another insurer. On checking the previous claim in a little bit more detail, we'd identified that that claim hadn't actually been paid, but also was accidental damage to the bedroom carpet caused by hot hair removal wax.
He denied all knowledge of the previous claim.
The policyholder insisted that there'd been no previous damage to the carpet and he'd been in that property for some time.
What the claimer hadn't counted on was that the insurance companies talked to each other and Allianz could easily get its hands on the details of his previous claim.
The similarities were beyond coincidence. One of our very experienced investigators listening to both calls using voice analysis techniques, and he was able to determine that both calls were indeed made by the same individual.
Again, the trickster denied all knowledge.
We gave him an opportunity to provide a further explanation, and he still insisted at that point, even confronted with the evidence we obtained, that it was all a misunderstanding. We went back to him and gave him an opportunity to confess. He didn't. Still insisted that it was all a misunderstanding.
Even though it was a small claim, it was referred to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. The specialised police unit takes a dim view on any form of fraud, and the claimant lost more than his claim.
The policyholder, we believe, was concerned about us referring to IFED because he was worried about his job. We found out he'd worked for another insurance company, and I think he was fearful of the consequences of that. It really wouldn't have gone down too well with them.
You're right. They didn't look too kindly on that, and he lost his job. And to top it all, he received a formal caution. But however small or large, no fraud will be tolerated.
The value of the claim submitted by the policyholder was only £245. But this really does go to show that insurance companies now take it seriously, have a zero tolerance towards fraud. This wasn't the most sophisticated attempt at fraud we've seen. He was easy to catch.
Quebec Sierra 50 at the address.
Thames Valley Police have been targeting crash for cash crime. Today, they're raiding an alleged gang's business premises.
Another one. We've got a warrant, okay, to search this address.
With the size of the premises, they've got their work cut out.
I think there's going to be loads we've got to go through. So if any officers come through, if they could come and help.
The officers need to be thorough in their search and can't leave any stone unturned.
We found it before we've been searching. There's one place that hasn't been searched, or one suitcase, or one briefcase, and you're just going to find that small bit of key evidence that could prove the case.
No matter how small the area. PC Roger Gilbert is a traffic investigator for Thames Valley Police. This is the culmination of months of hard work for Roger, who investigates traffic collisions, identifying possible links and patterns.
Every piece of paperwork here relates to different accidents at different times on different dates. There's probably a lot of unsuspecting members of the public out there who've been victims in these accidents who probably don't realise that they're induced collisions.
To build the strongest case possible, it's vital Roger gathers all the relevant paperwork to help bring the suspected offenders to justice.
We found various sets of car keys, another prepaid credit card. They basically go, we believe they go online and buy insurance, and they use the prepaid card, so they're harder to trace. But obviously, we found them in the drawers.
All potential evidence is bagged and tagged to help support the case.
So far, we've seized computers, paperwork, several mobile phones. We've found some drugs on the premise as well. And also, Clint's found some shotgun cartridges as well that we're not too sure if they're live or not. We're just keeping them safe. We're going to take them back to the police station and they'll be put into a safety cabinet, and the armed response vehicle, they'll just come to check that out. There's still a lot of stuff here. It's still possible we can find more paperwork, more mobile phones, maybe more firearms, you never know.
The drugs, cartridges and paperwork have been gathered as possible evidence and are being brought back to Thames Valley Police for further investigation. All in all, the officers think the raid has been successful.
I think without a doubt they've expected to get away with it. It sends a signal out to anybody else that's thinking about doing this sort of scam, committing these offences, that we will find them eventually.
On investigation, the police established that the men they found at the property were innocent and have nothing to do with the suspected criminal gang. But the items seized will now form a major part of the force's ongoing investigation. Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
Subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a firefighter feels the burn as his car is torched in an insurance scam.
The fire service had been called out on what became apparent was a hoax call.
One insurance claimer calls in an incredible tale.
This rat apparently had dragged the phone out into the street to presumably make a phone call.
And IFED go on the hunt for a potential crash for cash gang.
Oi, open the door now.
Firefighters risk their lives on a daily basis in order to protect us. They bravely put other people's safety before their own. It's a high-risk, high-pressure and highly respected role. One such hero was highly decorated Anthony Murray, who worked for the Lancashire Fire Service.
Mr. Murray has received two what we call Chief Fire Officers commendations. This is for action he's taken at incidents that are particularly important or dangerous.
In 2009, Anthony Murray saved the life of a 77-year-old woman when he pulled her from a burning building. But 3 years later, Mr. Murray was the victim of the cruelest irony, when his car was torched while he was out on a 999 call.
The incident actually took place in the early hours of the morning of the 5th of October of 2012. A car was torched in the car park at Skelmersdale Fire Station, and at the time the fire service had been called out on what became apparent was a hoax call. Murray was on duty as a fire officer at the time of the fire happening.
The police started to investigate who was responsible for the fake call.
The police investigation quickly revealed that the hoax call had been made by a gentleman called Gareth Collier, who was connected to Anthony Murray by virtue of them both having been employed as doormen at various licensed premises in Wigan.
The police then checked Collier's phone and made a surprising discovery.
The police looked into the telephone contact between Murray and Collier, and it very quickly became apparent that this was a planned offence that they had spoken about by text message on a number of occasions in the weeks leading up to the fire. There were text messages to show that Mr. Murray had told Mr. Collier exactly what to say in the hoax call, in that he'd told him to say that there was a road traffic collision at an area which is the furthest area that Skelmersdale Fire Station cover, knowing that that would have sent both fire engines, one of which contained Mr. Murray, to the furthest point of the area that fire station covers, thus making the coast clear for the fire to be set in the fire station car park.
With Murray now firmly in the frame, he came up with his own version of events.
He believed that someone had a grudge against him and Mr. Collier as they were suspected to have assaulted someone during the course of their work as doormen.
The police then received a series of threatening letters, which suggested that someone else was responsible for the arson attack.
Letters were received by various people which purported to establish that somebody had a grudge against Mr. Murray.
But there were clues in the letters that would spell the end for Murray.
Those letters were recovered by the police, and a number of them were assessed by a handwriting expert. That expert was able to compare the letters from this case with documents written previously by Mr. Murray. It showed that those documents shared similar spelling mistakes and handwriting style.
The plot thickened when forensic evidence implicated Murray's mate, Gareth Collier.
Mr. Collier's DNA was found on a cigarette lighter that was recovered next to the burnt vehicle, and he also went into the hospital the next day with quite a significant burn to his hand.
Gareth Collier had literally got his fingers burnt by the crime, but the stakes were high. After all, Murray's claim was worth tens of thousands of pounds.
Mr. Murray purchased the vehicle in June 2011 for £47,400, and within the space of a year it had depreciated in value by half. He had taken out normal car insurance and also gap insurance, which is to make up the difference between the market value at that point and the original price of the vehicle. So in the immediate aftermath of the car having been burnt out, he claimed on both of those insurance policies.
Murray was in so much debt that he thought torching his car was the only way out. He offered Collier £1,000 for his part in the botched burnout.
Whilst there was clearly a degree of planning to this offence, I certainly wouldn't describe either of the men as criminal masterminds. The police did a very good job investigating this case, but the evidence was certainly there for them to find.
Along with his own car, the fire had burnt 2 other station vehicles to the tune of more than £20,000. Murray had wanted to get minted, but what he got was a court summons instead.
The result was that Mr Murray pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit arson, 2 counts of fraud, 1 in respect of each of the 2 insurance policies, and perverting the course of justice. He received a total sentence of 60 months imprisonment.
Murray's plans to get rich quick turned to ash.
Mr Murray received a lengthy custodial sentence, which, in my opinion, reflected the seriousness of the offence, the amount of money concerned, the fact that in the aftermath of the offence he made positive steps to try and deflect the police investigation away from him. In addition to that, I think the most serious aggravating feature to this offence is that Mr Murray used his knowledge gained as a firefighter to assist in the commission of this offence, and that will have been taken very seriously.
The twisted firestarter's ruse was finally snuffed out, and he was unceremoniously locked up. Worse still, he had soured the good name of the Lancashire Fire Service.
This could have actually damaged our reputation quite badly, but I think people are sensible enough to realise this was a rogue activity by an individual. As an experienced firefighter, he fully knows the potential effects of fire. We are grateful that in this particular instance nobody was actually physically harmed. In Lancashire and elsewhere in the country, hoax calls and arson attempts have resulted in fatalities and serious injury. I'm appalled at the actions of Anthony Murray. I think as a fire service we feel betrayed by his actions.
Still to come, criminals who claim, how insurance scammers work from behind bars.
One of the witnesses had actually seen Kirbishley fall over quite dramatically in a very controlled manner.
And IFED call in for some backup.
Yeah, we're going to need method of entry because there's no way we can get through here.
Where would we be without our mobile phone? Today's smartphones aren't just a way of making a quick call. They're an online, emailing, music playing, texting, diary planning device. And that's just the basic models. So imagine how upset you are when you lose it. Thankfully, there are people like Andy Morris at Assurance Solutions on hand to insure us against such eventualities. And this keeps Andy pretty busy.
We have 11 million customers, so we're sort of processing about 3 or 4 claims a minute. So if you think about the opportunity for fraudsters to try it on, it's quite significant. Nothing really amazes me about the creativity of the fraudsters.
But there was one claim in particular that had a pretty long tale to tell.
We had one customer who telephoned the call centre to register a loss of their very expensive mobile phone.
I believe you're calling up with regards to a lost Samsung Galaxy 8 in black. Yes. OK.
At this point in the story, we enter Fantasyland. What the caller alleges next would have made Beatrix Potter proud.
The customer claimed that they'd gone to bed and had put the phone on charge.
Well, what we've got a rolling infestation of rats. Okay. And basically they've eaten through quite a lot of stuff. And the phone is basically gone. So they'll probably dragged it down, probably one of both.
Am I the only one who can smell a rat here? No, didn't think so.
Our agents and our fraud team were obviously triggered at that point and sort of proceeded to ask more questions to the customer.
A member of Andy's security and investigation team called back to sniff out the truth.
The claim's been passed up to our department for further investigations to be carried out. Okay, and for me to be able to complete those investigations, I need to go into the claim in a bit more detail with you, make sure I've got all the correct information, and I also have a few questions in regards to the claim.
Why?
Okay, so...
I've been infested with rodents.
The consumer actually becomes quite angry. Why are we asking questions? Why can't a rat run off with the phone? And that we're a silly organisation actually making it difficult for them to pursue their claim.
Basically, from what I can gather, I had it on charge. We've had an infestation of rats, and obviously they've eaten through the skirting board, right? It will have dragged, you could have dragged the phone outside.
I find that very hard to believe.
The customer continued to stick to their story, and this rat apparently had dragged the phone out into the street, presumably play games on the phone or make a phone call.
Why do you find it hard to believe?
Because I find it very hard to believe that a rat has taken the phone from your desk.
They're very good at what they do.
They're very good at what they do?
Yes. It's no one going to believe me or what?
Rats may be clever creatures, but Andy's team were not going to be trapped.
We looked at the data records, and to our amazing surprise, the telephone was being used the next day.
Did anybody else have access to the handset?
No.
The reason I'm asking...
Why?
The usage of the handset that I'm looking at in front of me shows that that handset was used on the day that you called us.
Fortunately, the caller had a perfectly rational explanation.
The way the rat is obviously seeing the entry point of getting out is into the street.
So your phone has been on charge on your desk. A rat has come and dragged your phone through your skirting board. It's then taken the phone outside and somebody's picked it up to use it.
Well, it could do.
Each phone has a unique identification code, and that's called in the industry the IMEI number. What that allows us to do is to effectively track when and where calls are made on that phone.
Using data analysis and interview techniques, Andy's team were able to catch this rat.
Our agents are trained using police interview technique, which is an approved process to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the phone was being used and this individual was probably making up a ratty tale.
The insurance company had given the customer plenty of opportunity to tell the truth. But when backed into a corner, he withdrew his claim and was blacklisted.
Whilst this is an amusing story, there is a really dark side to this. It costs the industry billions of pounds a year with fraud. And like they say, you're never more than 2 or 3 feet away from a rat. You're never more than 2 or 3 calls away from a potential fraudster.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
So if you're thinking about it, I suggest think again. There's every chance you'll get an IFED detective come knocking on your front door.
It's early morning, and IFED are on a mission to crack a suspected crash for cash gang. DS Marcus Allen and DC Patrick Einsman lead one team, while DC Kate Sibley heads the other.
The people we are after today is sort of higher up the chain, if you like. The crash for cashes, they're employing people to do the crash for cashes, but they're the ones that are the people we're looking for today are the ones that are organising it. So this is one of a number of addresses that is being visited this morning by officers from IFED.
On the other side of town, DS Marcus Allen's team are on their way to a different location.
We'll go to the address, first of all we'll knock at the door to try and get in. If we can't get in, we've got uniformed colleagues who can force entry. Right, shall we go?
Marcus and his team park around the corner so as not to draw any attention. An upstairs window is open, so someone may be home. But so far, there's no sign of life. Marcus and his team are eager to gain entry so they can begin their investigations. Tired of waiting, Marcus instructs his police colleagues to get the rapid entry equipment.
Yeah, go on, go.
But suddenly, someone appears at the upstairs window.
Somebody there. Now! Open the door now!
Finally, the suspect opens the door.
Good morning. Hello, I'm Marcus Allen. I'm from the City of London Police, the Insurance Fraud Investigation Department. OK, we've got a warrant to search this address, so come inside. OK, is there somewhere where we can sit down and talk? Thank you.
My name's Detective Constable Patrick Heinsman. I'm arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud and money laundering. You don't have to say anything.
IFED wastes no time, and it's not long before the suspect has read his rights. Marcus and the team are now able to conduct their search of the house.
Where do you keep your paperwork, your main paperwork? Here? OK, well, we'll start there. Also, computers. Do you have computers in the house? That is your computer. OK.
Meanwhile, DC Kate Sibley arrives at her destination. Kate is accompanied by the rapid entry team, a group of police officers equipped for knocking down doors. The occupants are thought to be involved in the alleged crash for cash scam.
Can you open the door, please? Good morning. City of London Police. You are?
Kate soon establishes that the men she is on the hunt for are not in the house, and they have sublet it to an innocent, if rather bemused, tenant.
Have you got any identification on you? Have you got a passport or anything, or driving licence? You do. Could I see it, please? Right, don't come through and I'll explain why we're here.
As the flat is owned by the suspects, Kate still needs to search the premises.
We have a warrant to search these premises, OK? So I am going to have a look round.
After a brief search that reveals nothing relevant, Kate moves on to a second address that may be associated with the suspects.
Okay. Thank you. Unfortunately, the two suspects we were looking for don't live there anymore, despite all the checks showing that they did. So we're now moving on to one of the other addresses that's currently being searched to give them assistance. And hopefully we'll catch up with the two suspects we're after later on today.
Meanwhile, back at Marcus's raid, there has been a development.
Open the doors, I'm going to break the door. No, open the door now. Wait, open the door now.
Police discover two men in an outbuilding.
Is there anybody else in these premises?
And now they must establish who they are, what their legal status is, and whether they're suspects and need to be arrested. Back in the main house, Marcus is thumbing through potential evidence.
We've got into the address, we've identified our suspect, he's been arrested. We're now searching the address for evidence in relation to the offences. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of correspondence to do with motor vehicles. So what we need to do now is establish what's relevant and what's not. We've got our uniformed colleagues for backup, so I'm quite happy with how it's gone so far.
Coming up, Kate's team gets serious. And Patrick discovers an unusual filing system containing potential evidence.
He's quickly thrown away all the DVLA unregistered for all the vehicles.
Is that all in the bin?
Yeah.
Some fraudulent insurance claims come from the strangest of places.
Manchester Prison is a Victorian prison. It was built in 1868 and opened as a high security prison in 1994, and we currently look after in excess of 1,300 men.
Incredibly though, some criminals are trying to claim from the state by creating fake injuries, which inmates like Andrew Kirbishley hope will pay out while they're still behind bars.
Mr. Kirbishley was serving time for a violent assault. He claimed that during the course of an industrial cleaning lesson that he was using the buffer and he tripped over the damaged flooring.
Accidents happen, and this was nothing out of the ordinary. But crafty Kirbishley was hell-bent on making a meal of it.
Kirbishley claimed that he'd severely injured his knee to the point where he wasn't able to walk.
While Kirbishley claimed to be injured, he still had his wits about him and had the psychic ability to predict his accident. Kirbishley had spotted the damaged floor days before and told the prison course leader about the imminent danger.
He actually informed us that Mr. Kirbishley had mentioned the damaged flooring before the course took place. He'd smiled and said somebody's going to have an accident on this during the course of the day.
And curiously enough, his prediction came true.
He was then seen by the City College instructor to pretend to fall over the damaged flooring and lower himself to the ground in a controlled manner. He then looked up at the City College instructor and smirked.
Kirbishley's prediction, and pretty poor acting, was where he really slipped up, as Chris Hadfield from Greater Manchester Police soon discovered.
One of the witnesses had actually seen Kirbishley fall over quite dramatically in a very controlled manner. And by that, he said that Kirbishley had fallen over with his arms outstretched, falling to the floor with his knee bent. That's not the actions of somebody who had tripped over.
Undeterred by witness accounts, Kirbishley appointed a solicitor who wrote to the prison authorities claiming their client had suffered significant pain and discomfort at the left knee and was suffering with a constant dull ache with bouts of intermittent sharp shooting and throbbing pains to the back of the knee.
The solicitor's letter had said that he was unable to attend the gym, so we asked the wing staff to monitor Mr. Kirbishley's movements.
It didn't take long to find out that crafty Kirbishley was continuing his deception.
The wing staff were able to monitor Mr. Kirbishley and relayed back to us that he was attending the gym on a regular basis and he was in fact lifting quite heavy weights. The amount of weight that he was lifting, he would be unable to do this with that knee injury.
The team had now gathered enough evidence to expose the fake claim and go after the crooked claimer. This resulted in Kirbishley's sentence being extended by an additional month. But that wasn't all.
Mr. Kirbishley was due to have a parole board review hearing where he was hoping to have his category lowered, which would mean that he could move to a lower category jail.
He thought it would be his get-out-of-jail-free card, but Kirbishley really tripped up when he thought he could get the taxpayer to pay for his lies.
The fact that Mr. Kirbishley was charged with another offence during his sentence meant that his progression to another establishment was halted at that point.
Kirbishley remains a caged bird in Manchester's high-security prison. And if he or any other inmate fancies making a quick buck from false claims, the governor has some words of warning.
The message is that this sort of action by offenders will not be tolerated, and we'll use all measures, working with Greater Manchester Police, our specialists, litigation teams, to stamp down on it. And the message is that it won't be tolerated and people will be brought to justice.
Two IFED teams are on the hunt for a suspected Crash for Cash group.
We're taking out the top players that we believe are behind the organisation of the crashes that we are investigating at the moment.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of...
DS Marcus Allen's team have already arrested one of the main suspects.
Open the doors, I'm going to pry the door.
They also discovered two men unexpectedly living in the suspect's outbuilding.
Wait, open the door now.
So you live here? Yeah, OK. Well, what we're doing, we've got a warrant to search. Search it. OK. Have you got ID?
Marcus takes photographs of their identification and emails their identities to Police HQ to check their legitimacy.
We're happy with the identity of the two men in the outbuilding and we've checked their immigration status and we're satisfied with them at the moment.
Elsewhere, DS Kate Sibley has arrived at a second location as part of the investigation.
The second address we've come to, we've arrested one suspect who's just been taken off to custody. This address is currently being searched, and we're now going to go off to the yard, which the rear of it is rented to the suspects, which is where all the vehicles are kept and taken after the accidents.
But gaining access is going to be tough. So Kate calls in the Rapid Entry Boys.
Yeah, we're going to need method of entry because there's no way we can get through here. Well, we just arrived at the yard. The main gates are locked, padlock. We need to go to the rear of that, which again is locked. There's no sign of life, so we've got to get assistance from our support group, who will be able to gain access using bolt croppers.
The Rapid Entry Unit don't mess about, and a padlock and chain are no match for them. They're in. Kate and her team need to explore further.
We were expecting to find vehicles in relation to the crashes that we're investigating. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We found a new business that's obviously taken over the site in the form of skip hire. So unfortunately, we've drawn a bit of a blank here, but it had to be done and we had to cover all bases.
Meanwhile, Marcus and Patrick make a potentially important discovery in the case. While searching an upstairs room, Patrick finds something very interesting. It's a bin containing a number of insurance documents. Paperwork that is often helpful in cases like these.
He's quickly thrown away all the DVLA unregistered scrap letters for all the vehicles.
Is that all in the bin?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'll do, I'll just seize the contents of the bin, I think.
The suspect finally emerges from the house and is led to the waiting police van.
The time's now 9:25. We've finished at the address, we've searched it thoroughly, we've arrested the suspect. We're now going to the custody at the police station to interview him.
With paperwork seized and the suspect arrested, it's been a good day for the IFED team. The investigation is still ongoing.